Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the Deposition, joined always by Senior Attorney Dayton Lewis. Nice to be here. We're going to get into a lot of topics today. Let's get going. So we got a really big ruling recently by the Supreme Court, something that was been anticipated for a long time. And this goes back to President Trump challenging what they call birthright citizenship. So this was obviously the Trump versus Barber ruling. We got a 6-3 decision that kind of struck down Trump's executive order, where he was attempting to just bypass the whole birthright citizenship per the Constitution, the amendment.
Right. So the decision itself was actually not that much of a surprise. Anyone who's followed this case closely, who understands basic Constitution law and everything else, the court basically reaffirmed there is a constitutional right to birthright citizenship. So if you were born on American soil, you're a U.S. citizen.
Right. So without getting into all the particulars of the arguments back and forth, what we can say is that the same things are in place that were before. If somebody came here and they're born within the U.S. jurisdictions, they are a U.S. citizen with all the rights of a U.S. citizen. Same as before. Now, if the Trump administration actually wants to change this policy, it's their stated goal, and they say they're going to continue to pursue it, how likely is it? How would they do it?
Well, it would require a constitutional amendment, so there's not a 0% chance it happens, but pretty much close to it. Really close, right? Good or bad, it is very, very hard to amend the Constitution.
Looks like birthright citizenship's here to stay, at least for now.
For now. And for a long time, probably.
This is a topic that we come to often. I kind of hate to go over it, but it's out there. We get news of it all the time when we are talking about fraud, specifically in this field that we practice, which is immigration.
Right.
There are some lawsuits that have now been filed against several prominent immigration law firms. I'm not going to go into the particulars, but this deals with the mass filing of applications for certain processes, generally speaking about VAWA, T visas, U visas. And we already know of one of these attorneys that was practicing this across multiple states who has given up her law license because of what they've uncovered. There's 2 more very big lawsuits against prominent lawyers who advertise these services. We're talking again, VAWA, T visa, U visa, and they're mass filing these things. The allegations look pretty similar to the one that gave up the law license. This looks pretty bad.
So, for those who don't know, VAWA is the Violence Against Women Act. It's not just for women. A man can also apply for status under VAWA. A T visa is for victims of extreme forms of trafficking. Typically almost akin to slave labor, and sexual trafficking.
Sure.
So these firms were filing these the allegations are that these firms were filing these cases based on just no real forms of extreme trafficking, just basic people cross the world legally, therefore they file a T visa for you. That's not what the law's for. As for the VAWA, there's allegations that these firms just make up stories of abuse for their clients to qualify.
Right.
So the issue here is, for the most part, these people supposedly paid a whole lot of money for these cases that have almost a 0% chance of ever being approved.
Now, we've actually met with and talked to so many people that come to us for a consultation that have either been former clients of certain law firms that do these things or have gone to consultations and were talked about. And we've heard similar stories to what you've talked about there. And let's get some practical advice for people. Generally speaking, your immigration case is your story.
Right.
It's what happened to you, and it needs to be something that you can prove and talk about, particularly in an interview if you're pulled into one, or if it's immigration court. It is something that happened to you. It is a legitimate thing that happened to you that you can put together a case for. If somebody is counseling you to do something that maybe is not your story, it didn't happen to, be extremely careful about going forward, because it's essentially perjury if they find it otherwise.
Correct. That could has some serious immigration process review, would almost certainly make it almost impossible to ever get a green card legitimately. Because if you're found to have committed immigration fraud or blind verifications, things of that nature, to go along with like, don't let people make up stories for you. Don't blindly sign signature pages on forms and then send it back without seeing the entire form before you sign something. Because once you sign a signature page for a form that you want to file, an attorney or anyone can just make up everything else in that form. You have agreed to it.
Sure. So whether you're filing an application for yourself, an attorney's doing it for you, or however you're getting it done, always review your forms in total. Review them before you sign your name at the bottom. That goes for anything, not just an immigration, not any contract or anything, but just make sure you're reviewing these things because it's just so important. And, it's like your mom always told you, honesty is the best policy, always. Let's talk about immigration courts. So one of our big wheelhouses here obviously is representing people that are facing immigration court. Obviously an action has been filed against them by the US government seeking their deportation from the United States. And our job as trial attorneys, right, is to defend their rights. And that's what we do. So let's just talk a little bit about that. There's different types of hearings, obviously, and there's different types of things that happen in immigration court. And I think there's some confusion out there. What types of hearings are there?
So all of our attorneys here are years of experience in being trial attorneys. So they deal with this every day. With immigration court, you're basically given two hearings. There's one called a master hearing. That's a preliminary hearing where you go through some administrative stuff and identify what your defense is, basically, to deportation, that you're pleading or pleadings. And then you have a final hearing called an individual hearing. Sometimes they'll refer to as a hearing on the merits, but the court uses the term individual hearing. Individual hearing is where you and your family get to basically tell your story about why you should run the country.
Right. So that individual is kind of an evidentiary hearing where putting on testimony and talking about the merits of your case. So when we're talking immigration court, obviously this can be either what we call a detained case, where the respondent, your client, is being detained, correct, and they're appearing by video for these hearings. That's usually a lot shorter in length. So we're talking those cases can take a few months, right? Or it's non-detained, where someone's, they're free and they just need to show up for these hearings. We also know that going to the actual hearings is different depending on the judge. Sometimes it's by video, sometimes it's in person. That's really a judicial decision.
It really is. I get asked by people all the time, can I change my appearing to be via video? And my answer is kind of, but mostly no. If there's a reason why it should be video, like for example, maybe you have now moved very far away and the expense of traveling to court in person is too extreme, you can sometimes apply for a video appearance, but mostly it's not your choice. Like every judge decides how to run his or her courtroom.
Yeah, and the trepidation of going to court, you somewhat understand. There was a lot of stories when Trump first took office of, ICE showing up to court and detaining people at their hearing or right after their hearing. You don't see that as much or at all anymore, especially here in Texas.
I don't really see people detaining respondents, which is the immigrant, in court in Dallas and Houston. In fact, I can't remember the last time one of our clients was detained at court. We've had maybe one or two detained ever under Trump, and that was basically due to some serious criminal issues that caused ICE to come and look for this person.
Right. So, while I understand that their preference is to appear by video, typically you can go to your attorney's office and appear in a video setting alongside your attorney, or I guess you could log in from your house as long as you have a good internet connection there. But going to court doesn't need to be the nerve-wracking experience where you think everything's going to fall apart. If you have competent counsel and they're there. Their job is to guide you and protect you. Again, that's what we do here. Like you mentioned, we are trial attorneys. Our attorneys here are experienced doing this, hundreds, thousands of these maybe under their belts. We know what we're doing, right? With the Houston Immigration Court, the Dallas Immigration Court, we are there to help. And it doesn't have to be the terrifying experience that a lot of people have described to us. We can talk you through it. We can get you through these things.
Right. As I always tell clients, the goal for you is not to win your court case. If you do, great. The goal is to get you a green card. That's the ultimate goal. One of the easiest ways for you to block yourself from ever getting a green card is to not go to court and to not have experienced counsel on your side handling the court properly to put you in a position to win, basically.
Well put. Yeah. Permanent resident status, and a lot of people call it having a green card. Cards used to look green, right? Still do.
So if I do,
So having a green card and you call it permanent status, it's not necessarily permanent. It can be taken away.
correct. There are ways for the government to try to strip you of permanent status. The most common one, if you're inside the United States, is there are criminal allegations against you. And criminal allegations that are serious enough that the government does not want you there anymore. They can also trip you of status if, say, you have lived abroad for years and try to reenter the United States. People forget about permanent status a lot of times is the word permanent. Permanent means it's your intention to permanently reside in the United States.
Yeah, the residency.
Yeah, right, the residency. So some people will travel to their home country, spend 3-4 years there, and decide, oh, I'm just going to go visit the United States. It's not a tourist visa. Like the card is for you to live here.
Right.
So that's a common way of getting your status pulled.
And when the government tries to strip you of this, you're typically sent to immigration court. They institute this action against you to literally strip you of your status. And you do have defenses in immigration court. We've defended many of these cases. Our green card holders are facing being stripped of their status and a deportation order being entered. So there are defenses to this, but you do have to take action when you see that.
So yeah, there are defenses you can raise in immigration court to defend against your stripping of your residency. It's the main what's called cancellation removal. That is where you meet certain criteria where you can argue that there be hardship to U.S. citizen relatives, and that's why you should keep your status.
One good way to be proactive here, if you are a permanent resident or a green card holder, once you meet the requirements, file for naturalization. Move to be a citizen of the United States, get yourself out of the permanent resident status, become a citizen.
That is the best thing you could do. If your green card is based on marriage, typically you can file to naturalize after 3 years to become a permanent resident. If your residency is based on any other kind of relative or process, it's typically 5 years. So once that 3-year mark hits, file what's called the N-400. You get your citizenship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll do a little immigration 101 here on who can file a family petition for an immigrant to seek residency here in the U.S. Go. So let's see.
There's 2 categories here we got to talk about. There are relatives that allow you that make you eligible for immediate visas, and relatives that do not. For immediate visa eligibility, the only 2 relatives that would qualify you for this are U.S. citizen children over 21 and U.S. citizen spouses.
Right.
But closely followed that, and the non-immediate are resident spouses. They can still petition for you, and it's generally faster than the other non-immediate categories, namely parents. And siblings.
Right. So we know parents can petition for their children.
Right.
Now it depends on the marital status of the children.
Right.
A U.S. citizen parent can always petition for their kids. Sorry. But a permanent resident parent can only petition for an unmarried adult child.
Right.
And we know U.S. citizen siblings can petition or their siblings.
So with a U.S. citizen sibling petitioning for you, depending on what country you're from, this wait time could be 20, 25 years.
Right.
The same thing with U.S. citizen or resident parents. It can be that long. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen parent petitioning for a child under 21, that's also immediate too. So that's at least faster. But if you're an adult child and going through a parent, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, and you could always check these things. Go to the Department of State's website, the Visa Bulletin. They put a new one out every single month. It has these categories we're talking about. It has the countries, different countries, depending on the country of origin, how this might affect processing times. But you can get a general idea of how long your process may or may not take, right based on that Visa Bulletin.
So even as a brief conversation, you can see like technically there are four categories of people that can petition for you. But even in these four categories, it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, they vary wildly. Yeah, how that's complicated, and also complicating in what country it's originating from.
Right. So there's various factors, which once again, this is why you need an attorney's experience doing this type of work.
Absolutely.
Looking over your case.
All right, thanks for joining us today on the Deposition. Thanks, Attorney Lewis.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a call. Free consultations in our offices in Dallas and Houston or virtually. We're happy to talk to you. Always happy to help you. Thanks, guy. God bless.